welcome to the main Canadian Grand Prix happening in Montreal, that on the track called Gare Villeneuve. I may not know how to pronounce it, just manage it with me, I beg. It's not my language, it's French. We were colonized by British. Sorry about that. My name is Oshifes Oluwadamilare. I'm a mechanic. Welcome to Exxon F1, also known as from Lawon, Colum, Africa. So, first thing we go to the teams that brought updates to Canada. You know, the last video we told you Ferrari, McLaren, Aston Martin, and some few other teams have declared they will bring in upgrades, major upgrades to Canada. But let us give you those that really brought updates. Red Bull brought updates because they've said all through the season that they'll be bringing bits and pieces, and that they've been doing for every race. They brought a reprofile front wing flaps. That was the only thing they declared that they brought to Montreal, and that is to increase the local load, that is to increase the downforce at the front. Ferrari, they might bring bits, but they didn't declare anything that has been brought. For Mercedes, the outer winglet tip has been removed from the top of their side pod. That is for drag reduction, because the Montreal track has a lot of slow corners, so they really need that to get maximum downforce on the slow corners. And I think they still need, like we said in some other videos, they still need to do a lot of tweaking to their car, get in the right shape. Now for Alpine, they brought a revised rear wings which actually replaced the pre-existing one, so that they can have good downforce. They also have a thicker center pillar on their end plate. They also have the lower leg of their rear suspension has been angled to go further downward to increase the load. They also brought revised inlet ducts for the front brake and to increase the cooling capacity for the track, which is a brake demanding track. The McLaren brought new rear wing flaps for greater aero efficiency, and they also brought a lower beam wing and new rear wing flap. Alfa Romeo brought rear brake duct cooling outlet to increase the cooling effect on this track. Like I said, the track demands a lot of braking. Aston Martin, those ones are the ones that really brought upgrade. They've brought a significant upgrade, which comprises of a new side pod with a greater undercut, new engine cover, and new floors. They really came with a lot of expectation. I know, like Lance Stroll said, he said from now to the end of the season, his driver should be on the podium. So they are wasting no time. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso has said from this Canadian race to the end of the season, he has to be on the podium. Nothing more, nothing less. And I think that is a brave statement from Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, because they are just saying even if other teams bring upgrade, they don't care. They must be on the podium. So they don't want to care what the others are bringing, what others are doing. They must finish either first, second, or third. That is it, which is a super statement for them to work with and to live with. And I think from this Canadian Grand Prix, which is a home race for Lance Stroll, I would say another home race for Aston Martin, because the owner of Aston Martin is a Canadian. So let's see if this home race will favor them. And it's a lot of home races for a lot of guys. Logan Sargent too, we can call it home race because it's a North American, it's an American. We can call it a home race for him, and I'll call it a home race for the French team also, Alpine. Now, this upgrade that they've brought, the side pod looks more bogus and greater cooling, but there's a downwash that looks more, well, I say looks more, but better than the Red Bull's downwash. And behind it, it has this cooling drag, which looks great, and that's a deep cut shape that looks like the Red Bull, the Alpine, and that looks very, very extreme, because what they're trying to do with that, because it's a water slide gap in the upper side pod surface, they have this cut there that should generate a lot of downforce for them, especially at the rear. I think that's a bold move for them, and let's see how that works for them in the race. Then Aston brought a new rear wing to improve the efficiency, and they also brought some things for the floor edges of their car. Alpha Tauri brought a low drag front wing with smaller cord and camber for the demand of that track. Also Williams, that's another team that brought upgrades, but I think the upgrade will be on just one car. They brought an extensive upgrade that will be on Alex Albon's car and will go on Logan Sargent's car in the next race. I think it's all about the cost cap and the way they want to manage what they have. They are thinking out loud because they don't want to get caught in this war of no money. They don't want to get caught in that war of no money. So they brought something on one car this week. Test it. If it works, they will bring it on another car next. If it's not working, they will tweak it and bring it on the two cars next race. So their upgrade is centered around their side pod, and they've reprofiled their side pod. Their engine cover has been reprofiled, and they brought new floors, and they brought new rear suspensions. They also reprofiled their halo and their rear brake ducts. Most of the teams are bringing rear brake ducts and front brake ducts because of the demand of the circuit, which is great. Now, let's go to FP1. What happened in FP1? FP1 was just totally mad by red flag. After the red flag, in which was caused by Pierre Gasly, he stopped about 8 minutes into the practice. It was stopped because his rear shaft had issues, which brought up transmission issues. For the race to be resumed, that was when they noticed during the race that they could not find him through the GPS on the CCTV cameras, the local CCTV cameras on the track. That was when they knew there was problem. So they've been running for like 10 minutes without the CCTV cameras working, which is dangerous, especially on an hybrid circuit like Montreal. Which I call it hybrid circuit because close to a street circuit, they see it as a street circuit, and that track is really built on a man-made island, which is cool. So you can see the track is surrounded by water, and even in the middle of the track there are some places that there is water there, which makes the track looks so beautiful. So the car stopped them. They now notice the local CCTV is not working. So with that, they have to red flag the practice so that they can get that sorted out, which gave a lot of teams to complain that they cannot get enough drive and this and that. So they decided to extend the FP2 by 30 minutes. The FP1, FP2, FP3 is meant to be a 1 hour practice, but because of the event of the camera not working, they had to extend it for FP2 for 30 minutes, which makes it a 1 hour 30-minute FP2 practice. And then we also noted that the racing kit for Lance Stroll this weekend will be auctioned to take care of those that were affected by the fire issue in Canada, in Montreal, which is a good thing for Lance Stroll to do. So that was just everything about FP1. So in FP1, we topped the FP1. Valtteri Bottas top FP1 today, and Lance Stroll second, 4 tenths behind him. Alonso is second behind him. Sergio Perez is second and 4 tenths behind him. Verstappen a second and a half behind. That was not the real picture of what happened because they were just setting up their tires and everything before the whole session went away. So let's go straight to FP2. Now, FP2. FP2. Now, in FP2, the times were just being exchanged between Red Bull and Ferrari. They were exchanging times as if they were breaking anchors for the first 30 minutes. And during those times, and it was so smooth and beautiful, later we noticed Mercedes were running on high fuel, and maybe they tuned down their engine possibly. But 30 minutes into the practice, Nico Hülkenberg had a fire issue on his car, which caused the first red flag in FP2. Some few minutes later, the drivers were back on track. All again, the Red Bull and Ferraris were exchanging times, they were shaking hands. Aston Martin were finding it difficult to get the right time. They kept on tweaking. Alonso went back to change his rear suspension. Lance Stroll went back to make adjustments. They were tweaking so many things to get themselves right in position. But Alpine never let it go. They did well. After Mercedes 30 minutes of race simulation, they came back with their main race pace because they did their race simulations on medium tires. I think Mercedes were smart. They did their race simulation before they did their qualifying simulation. We all knew there would be rain during the second practice because it was forecasted that there would be rain during the first and second practice, but the rain came about 10 minutes towards the end of the second practice. So, and there will be rain tomorrow also. It was forecasted that there will be rain tomorrow. There are chances of rain, 40% chance of rain on Sunday, but let's see what happens. So Mercedes were smart. They did their race simulations first, ran the high fuel, low. I think they tuned down the engine, and they did it on medium tires, which made everybody were like, as Mercedes lost it, but we were seeing their paddock. They look unbothered. They really look unbothered. So you should know that they are doing something. They know what they are doing. And some few minutes into that, Ocon brought out red flag in FP2. I think it was a water leak issue that affected his engine, and from what we think, I think it has caused an engine damage, but we don't know yet. So Mercedes moved to the soft tires and they showed their pace. Like I said in some other videos, Mercedes and Red Bull are having a slow warm-up time for their tires. So before they get their tires into the right window, it might take 1 lap or 2 laps. But when those tires are in the right window, they last long. So it took them like 2 or 3 laps. They got into the right window, and about 20 minutes to the end of the session, Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton topped the time chart, even with him being impeded a little and getting some drag towards the end of the lap. The impeding would have caused him some tenths, and the drag he got from the car in front of him also would have given him some tenths. So he still went to top of the time sheet with his teammate George Russell coming second in FP2, and they were followed quickly by the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, who who was just a tenth behind them, and Fernando Alonso, who was 3 tenths behind them, and Charles Leclerc, who was about 4 tenths behind the Mercedes. And the Red Bull were in top 10, but they were nowhere close to them. But we think everybody was sandbagging, so the other teams came out and do their race simulation towards the end of the race when they knew the rain would be coming. But comparing what the Mercedes did with what Alonso did is the fastest lap towards the end, very at the tail end, which means if the track would have rubbered enough, and it was still like 3 tenths behind the Mercedes, which shows that the Mercedes have really moved forward and they could be doing well this season, greatly well. The Red Bull didn't really show their pace today, but we hope that tomorrow everyone will be clear. At the point, the Aston Martin had to go with the Flow Vis to see towards the end of the race, about 12 minutes to the end of the race, to see how their upgrades are working and if it is really good for them. Then 4 minutes to the end of the race, the rain came in full force. Some of the drivers went with intermediate tire to do their race simulation, hoping there will be rain tomorrow during the qualifying. Some of them went higher to do race simulations. It was really a pool of rain. The season started dry and it ended well. But the major talking point are the Mercedes and the Ferrari, and possibly the Aston Martin. So this is it. If the Mercedes, Ferrari and Aston Martin are able to challenge the Red Bull tomorrow, that means the Red Bull are in trouble. I love that Red Bull team, but the only issue I think they should be afraid of now is these teams coming up. A lot of complaints were made to F1 during the past week about the benefit, the gains of the Red Bull, which I believe nobody should do anything about, because they did a good job last year and they did a better job this year. At the beginning of the season, they were just far ahead, about 1 second ahead of every other team. And I love what F1 said through Stefano Domenicali, and he said to be a bad thing for the team, for FIA or F1 to impede the speed of the Red Bull or to do anything mid-season to their speed, because they've done a good job, which they are right, 100% right. They don't need to do anything to them. Others need to buckle up and get it right, which is good. But if these teams are able to get close to Red Bull, it means we're going to have wonderful 15 races to end the season. It's going to be a very, very tight 15 races to the end of the season that would really decide who wins. But if in the next 2 or 3 races they are unable to get to the Red Bull, our Red Bull are able to keep dominating, then to be difficult for anybody to bring them down. Like I said, if they can bring the pressure to Red Bull, which it means that Red Bull will have to turn up their engines and Red Bull will start having issues. And when there's pressure on them, Red Bull team tends to fall apart. I hope the pressure will make them fall apart this time. And the only thing why I keep saying this, we want a good competition. We want them to race side by side, race for championship. If it is a 4-horse race or a 5-horse race, possibly, because the Alpines are really pushing, it's going to be a very interesting thing and a very lovely F1 season. But there's still a lot to see this season. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Now watch out for our analysis tomorrow. If you love what we do, and I know you love it, please subscribe, share, tell your friends about it. Let them join this community. Let them watch our videos. Let them like, comment, ask questions. We will answer you. We love you. Bye. Cheers. If you're a builder, if you're an art collector, if you have a showroom, Rated is the best place to get the artworks you need for your new buildings, for your art collections, for your showroom, for your exhibition. Rated Art have one of the best murals, mosaic works, and different art patterns in Nigeria presently. And it's somebody that you can communicate with, talks to you, you tell him what you want, and he will bring the reality out for you. To contact Rated Art, his number is right up here, and you can also go on social media links that are pasted right up here to check out some of his works. Thank you. Teams Gadget is for those of you that cannot easily go to the market to get your phones, your laptops, your accessories. Just place a call through. His phone number is there. It gets you the best. It's your shop plug to get you the best phones, accessories, laptops, games, and other accessories for your computer gaming experience. Contact Teams Gadget and you get them for you.